Humanity discovered it was not the center of the universe, and that discovery turned out to be the most liberating truth we have ever learned. NASA engineers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena commanded the Voyager 1 spacecraft to turn around and photograph Earth in 1990, when the probe had traveled 6 billion kilometers from home, and the image it captured measured less than a single pixel. Every human who ever lived appeared on that pale blue dot, suspended in scattered sunlight. Every war ever fought, every cathedral built, and every empire that crumbled to dust, all of it contained in a fraction of a fraction of a pixel. The 5th of September, 1977, marked the launch of Voyager 1, and 34 years after taking that photograph, the spacecraft had crossed more than 24 billion kilometers, making it the most distant object humans have ever created. Silence arrived in November 2023, and for 5 months, NASA heard nothing from that distant traveler. Engineers worked around the clock, sending commands that required 22 hours to arrive and another 22 hours before any response could return, which meant every troubleshooting attempt consumed nearly 2 full days. April 2024 brought the breakthrough when Voyager finally spoke again, proving that someone on the pale blue dot still listened. Waking each morning means planting your feet on what feels like solid, unmoving ground and watching the sun trace its arc across the sky while everything in the heavens appears to revolve around your position. Human beings built their entire understanding of the cosmos upon that feeling for thousands of years because it runs so deep and seems so natural, and nobody thought to question what seemed obvious. Feelings do not constitute data, and ancient authority proves nothing about how the universe actually operates, which creates a problem with that comfortable assumption. Evidence tells a different story, one that restructures everything about your place in existence. Consider the algorithm that recommended this video, which placed you at the center of a personalized universe curated around your interests, your watch history, and your demographic profile. Every scroll and every click confirms your centrality within that system. And 500 years ago, Claudius Ptolemy's geocentric model performed a similar function by placing Earth at the center and arranging the heavens to revolve around human observation. Both the Ptolemaic system and the YouTube algorithm construct elaborate architectures to maintain the illusion that everything revolves around you. Recognizing when our intuitions have built prisons we mistake for palaces was the real achievement of the Copernican revolution, not merely the astronomy. Over 1,000 years passed with Oxford and the University of Paris teaching the geocentric model while the Catholic Church endorsed it as truth, and everyone considered it obvious because it matched daily experience. Mars created the biggest headache for that elegant picture by slowing in its journey across the night sky, stopping completely, drifting backward for weeks, stopping again, and then resuming its forward path. Astronomers invented epicycles to explain this retrograde motion, adding circles upon circles as mathematical patches to preserve a flawed framework. Predictions worked well enough under that system, but the ugliness of all those nested circles should have served as a warning. Geocentrism was a reasonable inference from limited data rather than a stupid idea, and this distinction matters. Standing on Earth and watching the sky move overhead leads naturally to the conclusion that you are stationary while everything else orbits around you, which means our ancestors were not fools for believing it. Reasonable inferences drawn from limited perspectives can turn out to be spectacularly and catastrophically wrong, and that lesson applies to the present day just as much as it applied to ancient astronomy. Eratosthenes served as chief librarian at the Library of Alexandria during the 3rd century before the Common Era, running the largest repository of knowledge anywhere in the ancient world. Papyrus scrolls in that library mention something curious about the city of Sagan, far to the south, in Egypt, where vertical sticks cast no shadows at noon on the summer solstice because the sun stood directly overhead. Whether the same thing happened in Alexandria on the same day at the same hour became his question, and measuring the shadow cast by a stick revealed that shadows definitely existed there, meaning the sun was not directly overhead. Flat Earth geometry cannot explain that result because parallel rays from the sun would strike every point at the same angle and produce identical shadows everywhere if our planet were flat like a table. Living on a sphere is the only explanation that fits the evidence. Eratosthenes pushed his reasoning further by measuring the shadow angle at roughly 7 degrees, which represents 1/50th of a full circle. And since he knew the distance between Alexandria and Syene measured about 800 kilometers, he multiplied that distance by 50. 40,000 kilometers for the total circumference of Earth was the answer he reached, and that answer is correct, achieved 2,200 years ago using nothing but sticks, eyes, feet, and what he called a zest for experiment. Tragedy haunts this story because Aristarchus of Samos proposed that Earth orbits the sun rather than the other way around, while working at roughly the same time as Eratosthenes. His contemporaries ignored him completely because the idea struck them as too radical and too contrary to common sense. 18 more centuries of the geocentric model followed, trapping humanity in a comfortable assumption that felt true but was not. Publishing De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium in 1543 made Nicolaus Copernicus famous. He wrote that book as a Catholic cleric and astronomer working from a tower in Frauenburg. Earth was demoted from the hub of creation to one world among several, all of them falling endlessly around a star, and the implications of that argument terrified the authorities who had built their power on claims of cosmic centrality. Simple narratives about Copernicus obscure the fact that he got major details wrong. Circular orbits appear in his model when the true paths are ellipses, and he retains some of those ugly epicycles while failing to place the sun at the actual center of the system. Johannes Kepler fixed the orbit problem by using meticulous observations that Tycho Brahe had collected over decades, proving that planets move in ellipses and sweep out equal areas in equal times. January of 1610 brought Galilei's telescope to bear on Jupiter, and he spotted 4 moons orbiting another world, which demolished the claim that everything revolved around Earth. Isaac Newton arrived later and explained why any of this worked by showing that the same force pulling an apple toward the ground keeps the moon in orbit and the planets on their courses. Lone geniuses having perfect insights is not how science advances, because stumbling forward through collaboration and correction and the systematic rejection of beautiful ideas that fail to match reality describes the actual process. Copernicus served as a stepping stone rather than a destination. Being wrong is not failure when it leads to better understanding, while refusing correction is the only real failure in the search for truth. Religious authorities did not appreciate these corrections to their cosmology. Giordano Bruno proposed an infinite universe filled with countless worlds, and the Inquisition burned him at the stake in Rome in 1600 for that and other heresies. Forced recantation of his support for heliocentrism awaited Galileo, who spent his final years under house arrest. Ideas about our cosmic address carry implications that extend far beyond astronomy because they challenge hierarchies built on claims of special access to divine truth, and the Church understood this. Motion, at tremendous speeds, defines your existence right now, even though you cannot feel it. Earth's rotation moves you at roughly 1,600 kilometers per hour, while the planet simultaneously orbits the sun at 107,000 kilometers per hour, and our entire solar system circles the center of the Milky Way galaxy at nearly 800,000 kilometers per hour. Falling toward a gravitational anomaly called the Great Attractor at speeds exceeding 2 million kilometers per hour describes what our galaxy does, and that anomaly sits 250 million light years away. Standing still has never been an option for anything in this universe. Every moment of your existence has involved hurtling through space at velocities that would vaporize matter if anything suddenly stopped. Somewhere between 200 and 400 billion stars fill our Milky Way, and that galaxy counts as just one among hundreds of billions in the observable universe. Each of those galaxies holds its own hundreds of billions of stars, which means the total number exceeds the grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth combined. Christmas Day 2021 marked the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope, and that instrument has now peered deeper into cosmic history than any previous telescope, detecting galaxies that formed just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. Stars and worlds appeared in the universe far earlier than anyone expected, and the James Webb data proved it. More than 5,500 planets orbiting other stars have been confirmed by astronomers since 1996, and that number keeps climbing. Thousands of them turned up through the Kepler Space Telescope and the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite, including hot Jupiters spiraling close to their parent stars, super-Earths sitting in habitable zones where liquid water could exist, and strange worlds of ice and fire that defy easy classification. Cataloging other planets has replaced speculation about whether they exist. Far more crowded with worlds than even optimists predicted is what the universe turned out to be. Accepting that we do not occupy the center and purpose of existence came reluctantly, because it meant recognizing that we live on a tiny, fragile world lost in immensity and eternity. A great cosmic ocean stretches in every direction, dotted here and there with 100 billion galaxies and a billion trillion stars, and something in us recognizes this vastness as home. Stellar ash makes up everything we are. Our origin and evolution are tied to distant cosmic events, which means exploring the cosmos is really a voyage of self-discovery. Nitrogen in our DNA, calcium in our teeth, iron in our blood, and carbon in our apple pies all formed in the interiors of collapsing stars billions of years ago. Star stuff makes up everything we are, and that statement is not metaphor or poetry dressed as science, but literal physical truth. Every carbon atom in your body was forged in the nuclear furnace of a star that lived and died before our sun existed. Exploding in a supernova scattered that ancient star's enriched material across interstellar space, and those atoms drifted for millions of years before coalescing into the cloud of gas and dust that collapsed 4.6 billion years ago to form our solar system. You are not separate from the cosmos, but rather the cosmos itself, temporarily organized into a pattern capable of contemplating its own origins. Making an apple pie from scratch requires first inventing the universe. Compressing the 13.8 billion year history of the universe into a single calendar year helps convey the scale of cosmic time, with the Big Bang occurring at midnight on January 1st, and each month representing roughly a billion years. About 38 million years equals each day on this calendar, and approximately 438 years of real time equals each second. March brings the formation of the Milky Way under this scheme, while our sun and planets do not appear until early September. Life arises on Earth soon after, but remains simple, single-celled organisms for months, and complex, multicellular creatures finally emerge in mid-November. December 25th brings the dinosaurs, and their extinction comes by December 30th. Around 10:30 inches the evening, on December 31st, is when hominid ancestors appear, and all of recorded human history, every pharaoh and philosopher and prophet, occupies only the last 14 seconds before midnight. 1/100th of a cosmic second contains YouTube's entire history under this scale, meaning the platform hosting this video is newer than the blink of a cosmic eye. Every video ever uploaded, every comment ever posted, and every algorithm ever trained exists in a sliver of time so thin it barely registers against the age of the universe. Fights over fractions of a pixel occurring in fractions of a cosmic second is what border disputes and nationalist movements and territorial wars represent. Recognizing this proportion changes how all of it looks. Everyone you love, everyone you know, and everyone you have ever heard of lived out their lives on that pale blue dot, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Human joy and suffering in aggregate sits on that dot, along with thousands of confident religions and ideologies and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, every hopeful child, every inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, and every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there. A very small stage in a vast cosmic arena is what Earth amounts to, and the rivers of blood spilled by generals and emperors throughout history were shed so those men could become momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Endless cruelties visited by inhabitants of one corner of this pixel upon the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner fill the historical record. Frequent misunderstandings, eagerness to kill one another, and fervent hatreds all happened on that tiny speck. Our posturings and our imagined self-importance and the delusion that we hold some privileged position in the universe all crumble when confronted with this point of pale light. Crushing is how some people find this perspective because it seems to strip away meaning and purpose if we are not the center of creation and not made of special material different from rocks and comets and interstellar gas. Missing the point entirely is what that reaction does. Astronomy humbles and builds character, and no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits exists than this distant image of our tiny world. Responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot is what the photograph underscores, since it remains the only home we have ever known. Understanding our true place elevates us rather than diminishing us, because for a collection of atoms to become aware of itself, to contemplate its own origins, and to peer across billions of light years and billions of years represents something extraordinary. No confirmed evidence of other minds capable of such contemplation has turned up in all the vastness we have surveyed, which means we may be rare and cosmically significant precisely because we achieved cosmic awareness. Precious in the cosmic perspective is what every one of us is. And if a human disagrees with you, then let that person live, because in 100 billion galaxies you will not find another exactly like them. Machines that may one day contemplate the cosmos alongside us or instead of us are now under construction, and artificial intelligence represents something unprecedented in the history of star stuff. Whether these systems will become conscious remains unknown, but whether consciousness, wherever it arises, will choose wisdom over oblivion is the real question. Not being the center is what the Copernican revolution taught us, and not being the only minds capable of asking the question may be what the AI revolution teaches. Andrian continues this work through the Planetary Society, the organization we co-founded to advocate for space exploration, and the mission persists because the questions persist. Whether we are alone in this vast cosmos remains unanswered. Where we are going as a species and what we will become if we survive remain open. A lonely speck in the great, enveloping cosmic dark is what our planet amounts to. And in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. Earth remains the only world known to harbor life, and there's nowhere else in the near future where our species could migrate, though we might visit other worlds before we could settle them. Earth is where we make our stand for the moment, like it or not. Enhancing life and coming to know the universe that made us is one choice, and squandering our 13, 8 billion-year heritage in meaningless self-destruction is the other. What happens in the first second of the next cosmic year depends on what we do here and now with our intelligence and our knowledge of the cosmos. Our own wisdom and courage alone determine the significance of our lives and our fragile planet, because we are the custodians of life's meaning. Longing for a parent to care for us, to forgive our errors, and to save us from our childish mistakes is natural, but knowledge is preferable to ignorance, and embracing hard truth beats clinging to reassuring fables. Finding ourselves a worthy goal is what we must do if we crave some cosmic purpose. Earth's surface is the shore of the cosmic ocean, and on this shore we have learned most of what we know about existence. Wading a little way out recently, maybe ankle deep, revealed that the water seems inviting because some part of our being knows this is where we came from. Returning to that ocean is something we long for, and we can do so because the cosmos is also within us, making us a way for the cosmos to know itself. Voyager 1 is still out there transmitting data, still carrying the golden record we attach to its side as a message in a bottle cast into the cosmic ocean. Readings in 55 languages fill that record, along with music from Bach to Chuck Berry and even the brainwaves of a woman in love. Drifting between the stars for 1 billion years is what awaits that spacecraft, long after Earth itself is gone, carrying evidence that we once existed and once wondered about our place among the stars. Wanderers is what we began as, and wanderers is what we remain, having lingered long enough on the shores of the cosmic ocean. Setting sail for the stars is what we are ready for at last. Not revolving around us is what the cosmos does, and that fact is not a demotion, but an invitation. Star stuff is what we are made of, and we have come home.